Two companion bills making their way through the State House hope to alert people fishing near statewide dumping locations which waterways could be contaminated with PFAS or forever chemicals.
Earlier this month, you may remember, Live 5 looked into the presence of these forever chemicals found in tissue samples from things like crabs, oysters, freshwater fish that were caught in Lowcountry waterways, specifically in places that don't have any signs warning you of the risk of these contaminants.
So since that report, the EPA has released new federal guidelines mandating drinking water does not exceed a certain level of PFAS, and some of our local waterways hope to take this one step further.
Live 5's Justin Kolar brings us back to the Cooper River with a look at what's being done to protect our water from these forever chemicals.
Well, I've fished here quite a long time, probably a little more than 15 years.
While this scene along the Cooper River may look picturesque,
And fishing is pretty good.
the presence of PFAS has made it perilous.
We know it's dangerous and we're going to have to do something about it unless, all of our loved ones, families, and friends are going to end up with cancer.
Senator Sandy Senn sponsored a bill in Columbia to help alert fishermen with signs like this at outfalls like these, where previously mercury and now PFAS have been found statewide.
I certainly don't like signs on our waterways. I don't like that. But I think sometimes when we know we have an area that's particularly tainted, we need to let people know.
People like Danny Fogler, a cancer survivor himself, who's caught, cooked, and eaten fish from the Cooper River. He never knew the water was contaminated.
Once man destroyed the rivers and the lakes, he destroyed lives. So it is a concern about my children's future and the future of others.
Which ultimately begs the question, if you shouldn't be eating fish caught from this river, why should you and 500,000 others throughout the Lowcountry be drinking from it?
No, you shouldn't.
Jason LaRouche owns Grace Plumbing and Water Filtration.
And that's exactly your point. You're not going to eat that fish because you know what it's going to be tainted with, but that's still a source that's coming into your house, and there's only so much the water companies can do to filter all that stuff out.
He says, PFAS aside, you shouldn't be drinking this water. We tested tap water, and these results aren't fit for a pool. With high chlorine and pH, watch as we test this same water after my skin had absorbed some of the chemicals.
But, I've always said you're either going to have a filter or you're going to be the filter. You're still consuming it in some way, and your body doesn't release that once it has it in there.
But the fact remains.
90% of our drinking water on a typical day comes from the Bushy Park Reservoir, and we test these raw water sources for PFAS. We've been testing them since 2014, and we test them quarterly currently, and our numbers are pretty consistent.
Thanks to a recent mandate from the EPA, PFAS levels will now be federally regulated for the first time. And the numbers tested from the river are consistently higher than the newly required threshold by several parts per trillion.
We have a very good idea of what amount of PFAS is in our water and what it's going to take to remove them. But the bottom line is it's going to be extremely expensive.
And the water system said in a letter sent to their customers that expense will be passed to you, not to those responsible for dumping in the first place.
There is a whole lot of industry around our Bushy Park Reservoir, but none of those locations are responsible for adding PFAS to the water.
Companies like DuPont, that had a presence along this river for years, have lost millions of dollars in lawsuits over dumping PFAS chemicals into public waterways nationwide. A sign would be placed by a dumping location near their former North Charleston plant under Senator Senn's bill.
I want to make sure bad actors don't get away with doing things like continuing to dump.
But in the short term, they will, as water systems nationwide have 5 years to comply with the new chemical mandates, and Senator Senn's bill likely won't pass this legislative session.
So certainly I think I would go find another fishing spot.
While he won't be eating from this river again, Fogler says there is one thing he will do.
Well, I'm older and I've seen a lot that needed to be paid attention to. Well, I think people should use their voice, open up and express themselves about the concern and conditions of the drinking water, the water that exists in their streams and rivers, and it's a healthy concern.
Along the banks of the Cooper River, Justin Kolar, Live 5 News.
Local experts suggest running your tap water through a simple water filter before drinking from the tap. You can find these at stores like Target and Walmart. Now, the Charleston water system has been voluntarily testing their water for a decade. You can find those test results at live5news.com under this story.